but what I said at the time is what I meant, which is this was a one-time proposition. And what I have told leaders privately as well as publicly is that we cannot afford to extend the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy. What we can do is make sure that middle-class taxes don't go up. And so the most important step we can take right now, I think, the foundation for a deal that helps the economy. Creates jobs, gives consumers certainty, which means gives businesses confidence that they're going to have consumers during the holiday season. Is if we right away say 98% of Americans are not going to see their taxes go up. "97% of small businesses are not going to see their taxes go up. If we get that in place, we are actually removing half of the fiscal cliff. Half of the danger to our economy is removed by that single step. And what we can then do is shape a process whereby we look at tax reform, which I'm very eager to do. I think we can simplify our tax system. I think we can make it more efficient. We can eliminate loopholes and deductions that have a distorting effect on our economy. I believe that we have to continue to take a serious look at how we reform our entitlements. Because healthcare costs continue to be the biggest driver of our deficits. So there is a package to be shaped. And I'm confident that parties, folks of goodwill in both parties, can make that happen. But what I'm not going to do is to extend Bush tax cuts for the wealthiest 2% that we can't afford. And according to economists, will have the least positive impact on our economy. Question: you've said that the wealthiest must pay more. Would closing loopholes instead of raising rates for them satisfy you? President Obama: I think that there are loopholes that can be closed. And we should look at how we can make the process of deductions, the filing process easier, simpler. But when it comes to the top 2%, what I'm not going to do is to extend further. A tax cut for folks who don't need it, which would cost close to $1 trillion. And it's very difficult to see how you make up that $1 trillion if we're serious about deficit reduction just by closing loopholes and deductions. The math tends not to work. And I think it's important to establish a basic principle that was debated extensively during the course of this campaign. I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. If there was one thing that everybody understood was a big difference between myself and Mr. Romney, it was when it comes to how we reduce our deficit. I argued for a balanced, responsible approach. And part of that included making sure that the wealthiest Americans pay a little bit more. I think every voter out there understood that that was an important debate. And the majority of voters agreed with me. By the way, more voters agreed with me on this issue than voted for me. So we've got a clear majority of the American people who recognize if we're going to be serious about deficit reduction, we've got to do it in a balanced way. The only question now is, are we going to hold the middle class hostage in order to go ahead and let that happen? Or can we all step back and say, here's something we agree on: we don't want middle class. Taxes to go up. Let's go ahead and lock that in. That will be good for the economy. It will. Be good for consumers. It will be good for businesses. It takes the edge off the fiscal cliff. And let's also then commit ourselves to the broader package of deficit reduction that includes entitlement changes, and it includes potentially tax reform. As well as I'm willing to look at additional work that we can do on the discretionary spending side. So I want a big deal. I want a comprehensive deal. I want to see if we can, at least for the foreseeable future, provide certainty to businesses and the American people so that we can focus on job growth. So that we're also investing in the things that we need. But right now what I want to make sure of is that taxes on middle-class families don't go up. And there's a very easy way to do that. We could get that done by next week. Lori Montenegro, Telemundo. Question, thank you, MR. President. On immigration reform, the criticism in the past has been that you did not put forth legislation with specific ideas and send it up to the Hill. This time around you have said again that this will be one of the top priorities for a second term. Will you then send legislation to the Hill? And exactly what do you envision is broad immigration reform? Does that include a legalization program? And also, what lessons, if any, did Democrats learn from this last election and the Latino vote? President Obama, well, I think what was incredibly encouraging was to see a significant increase in Latino turnout. It is the fastest growing group in the country. And historically what you've seen is the Latino vote. Vote at lower rates than the broader population, and that's beginning to change. You're starting to see a sense of empowerment and civic participation. That I think is going to be powerful and good for the country. And it is why I'm very confident that we can get immigration reform done. Before the election I had given a couple interviews where I predicted that the Latino vote was going to be strong. And that would cause some reflection on the part of Republicans about their position on immigration reform. I think we're starting to see that already. I think that's a positive sign. This has not historically been a partisan issue. We've had President Bush and John McCain and others. Who have supported comprehensive immigration reform in the past. So we need to seize the moment. And my expectation is that we get a bill introduced and we begin the process in Congress very soon after my inauguration. And in fact, some conversations I think are already beginning to take place. Among senators and congressmen and my staff about what would this look like. And when I say comprehensive immigration reform, it is very similar to the outlines of previous efforts at comprehensive immigration reform. I think it should include a continuation of the strong border security. Measures that we've taken because we have to secure our borders. I think it should contain serious penalties for companies that are purposely hiring undocumented workers and taking advantage of them. And I do think that there should be a pathway for legal status for those who are living in this country. Are not engaged in criminal activity, are here simply to work. It's important for them to pay back taxes. It's important for them to learn English. It's important for them to potentially pay a fine. But to give them the avenue whereby they can resolve their legal status here in this country, I think is very important. Obviously, making sure that we put into law what the first step that we've taken administratively dealing with the DREAM Act kids is very important as well. One thing that I'm very clear about is that young people who are brought here through no fault of their own, who have gone to school here, pledged allegiance to our flag, want to serve in our military, want to go to school and contribute to our society, that they shouldn't be under the cloud of deportation. That we should give them every opportunity to earn their citizenship. And so there are other components to it, obviously. The business community continues to be concerned about getting enough high-skill workers. And I am a believer that if you've got a PhD in physics or computer science who wants to stay here and start a business here, we shouldn't make it harder for him to stay here, we should try to encourage him to contribute to the society. I think that the agricultural sector obviously has very specific concerns about making sure that they've got a workforce that helps deliver food to our tables. So there are going to be a bunch of components to it, but I think whatever process we have, needs to make sure our border security is strong, needs to deal with employers effectively. Needs to provide a pathway for the undocumented here, needs to deal with the DREAM Act kids. And I think that's something that we can get done. Chuck Todd. Where's Chuck? Question, Mr. President, I just want to follow on both Ben's question and Jessica's question. On having to do with Ben's question. President Obama, how about Lori's question? Do you want to follow up on that one, too? Question, no, I feel like you answered that one completely. Are you withholding judgment on whether you should have known sooner that there was a potential? That there was an investigation into whether your CIA director potentially there was a national security breach with your CIA director. Do you believe you should have known sooner? Are you withholding judgment until the investigation is complete on that front? And then the follow-up to Jessica's question: tax rates. Is there no deal at the end of the year if tax rates for the top 2% aren't the Clinton tax rates, period? No ifs, ands, or buts, any room in negotiating on that specific aspect of the fiscal cliff.